All right, so today I'd like to introduce you to my buddy Cass. This is my buddy Cass. Cass, come here. All right, just a minute. Okay, so now Cass here has got a boo-boo on his leg. I wonder if you can see that right here. So this feels like there's some swelling, and maybe there's something under the skin that we want to be able to extract. And so today we're going to go on a little gathering adventure for our friend Cass here and collect some herb, collect some medicines from the forest that will both be antiseptic and antibiotic and also have a strong astringent value, so it'll pull out whatever's in there so that he doesn't have any complications and we don't have to take him to the vet unnecessarily. So that's our adventure for the day. Filming, Cat? Okay, so first, for the type of situation that our boy Cass here has, oak is a very good option. And there are commonly in this area in southern Oregon, white oak as well as black oak. And they both have different medicinal properties. If you were to look up on the internet medicinal oak, or that using oak for medicinal value, mostly, maybe almost all the searches will show white oak as the oak of choice. But that's actually a misunderstanding, and basically it's a repeat of knowledge that's been passed down. An author reads a book that came before and then writes the same thing, and you can find this commonly in herbal books, but a lot of the knowledge has not been tested, and it doesn't actually pan out. And so the best thing to do is, of course, to actually get to know the trees, get to know the plants, and to test these things for yourself. But this is a white oak, and so come and look at the leaves. You'll notice that the leaves are quite rounded. The black oak will have little spikes on the tips, which I'll show you in a bit. So this is white oak, and if we were to collect bark for the purpose of working with our dog's situation, the most medicinal value for the type of situation we want, most concentrated medicinal value will be in the bark. You can also use the acorns for a similar value, but acorns are quite seasonal, and so you're very limited as to when you could use them. But the bark will be accessible year-round. This being white oak, the bark is not going to be nearly as intense or as stringent as will be the black oak. And we've already collected some white oak bark and boiled it up to do a taste test. And you can find out the value you want by putting it in your mouth, and it'll cause you to pucker if it's really astringent. So that's ultimately what we're going to be looking for. But we're not going to collect from this tree right now. We're actually going to find a black oak to collect from. Okay, so here's a black oak, a young black oak, and you can see the spikes on the tip of the leaves. So this is what we're looking for in terms of the type of tree. And you can see the darker bark. And this is a very young oak, and so I don't really want to collect the bark from this tree, as it'll stress the tree a lot more than we want. And it really isn't, the bark is extremely thin on a tree like this, so it's more likely to cause an injury to the tree that we don't want. But if we look just directly across the way, we can see here there's a very large, beautiful oak. And this is also a black oak, and this is likely the oak that was the parent of this little oak that we just looked at. This is a beautiful oak that, if you look at this bark, this is from this bark we'll collect. And the way this will work, and this is important to understand that when you're working with the plants, to actually start to get don't think too much. Now, of course, you want to do your research and make sure that oak is not poisonous. It is not. And you want to know what its basic medicinal values are, if at all possible. But as you practice meditation more, especially the type of meditation that we're teaching, it will open up your awareness to be able to get some kind of information that you might otherwise not be able to get from the trees and the plants around you. And this tree really feels good for Cass's situation. He's wandering back there messing around. And so what I'm going to do, as you can see, there's bark right here. I'm just going to start pulling off some of this bark. You can see, I'm just putting it in. Some of it will just break right off. Some of it I might have to actually use my little hatchet. And I'm not going all the way down to the inner bark, or what's called the cambium layer. I'm just collecting the outer bark. That's sufficient to get what we want. And so you can see what I've got here. Small basket full. I've basically got a good palm size amount of bark, which we're going to boil for 20 minutes. Well, simmer for 20 minutes in any case. Okay, so we're back at the house and we're starting the water boiling. And before it starts to really hard boil, I get it warm and then I just take the bark and put it in there. And then I'm going to let it hard simmer. Not really rough boil, but just hard simmer for about 20 minutes or so. And you can see there's a lot of dusty kind of smaller bark particles. I won't put that in there. I'm going to have to strain it out anyway, and so I'll just leave that out so that it doesn't make things so messy. But basically at this point I'm just going to put a timer on for 20 minutes and this works. Now the most ideal thing is that you do this process. So right now this is boiling harder than I want it to, so I just got to turn it down to the point where it gets what we want. But whenever doing any kind of work with herbal stuff, it's a perfect opportunity if you're practicing awareness and meditation and you just quiet yourself. And then you can ask the question, so like my body tells me that that's boiling too hard. This isn't like I'm following a formula. And then I get it to a point where it's boiling the right amount. And once I find that temperature, I'll let it stay there. And when you collect, if you're in a silent space, an aware space, sort of an intimate mind with nature, often the right tree or plant will call you to it. That's the feeling. And it sounds very woo-woo, but it's an experience that you have. I can't explain it much better than that, but I highly recommend you play with this sort of stuff. And early on, you need to know, whenever you're collecting, of course, if the plant is poisonous or not. And generally speaking, the rough medicinal properties that are typically written in books and stuff, that's helpful. But you're going to break that pattern before long. The only thing you're not going to break is the poisonous plant stuff. You can pay attention to that and work around that. But as far as medicinal values goes, what you'll find is through awareness, the book will say, you know, plantain, the herbal plantain has this and this and this quality. But actually, just like human beings, there are different qualities. Not all humans have the same abilities. You know, one person can be an NBA basketball player, another person be a great writer, they have different qualities according to the soil, the temperature, the time of day, the relationship to the plants around it, the types of insects in the area. That individual plant will have some variation in its quality. And what you want to find is the one that's drawing you to the specific issue you're working with. And you stay in the meditation throughout, you can find the right boiling temperature, the right time, and adjust as you go and maximize the healing potential of the herb. And you may even, as you get more advanced, you may be able to combine it with other plants to bring out even more enhanced qualities and new healing properties. Most plants, maybe every plant in existence, has some utilitarian, herbal, medicinal, psychologically developmental property, and potentially toxic aspects, all of which can be modified. Sometimes these are poisonous, the poisons can be removed, and sometimes things which are edible can be, they could have been poisonous and become edible through the process or medicinal. So there's many, many aspects. Many plants that are poisonous are actually also highly, highly medicinal. But the key to that is awareness. Don't be shy from books, but also don't be imprisoned by them. The only rule that I make is be aware of what is poisonous. And that way you don't kill yourself when you make a mistake, which you surely will do from time to time. Okay, so that's something to be aware of. So it's as it boils over a extended period of time, what will happen is the amount of water will start to reduce. And if you're not paying attention, if you're just relying on the timer, what will happen is it'll start actually, the temperature in the water will get too high because the amount of water has gone down relative to the heat. And it'll start to boil too hard, which can destroy the properties that we're looking for. Now, depending on the herb, boiling is helpful, and depending on other herbs, you can't boil them at all. Depending on the properties you specifically want, you may steep something or boil it, just depending. In this case, as the water's reducing, I don't want this much heat in the water. It's not right. It would destroy the property, so I'm going to turn it down to the point where it's just a little bit milder in the boiling. And so the key is, again, awareness, paying attention, feeling. This is not a knowledge base that I'm coming from exactly. It's a combination of experience as well as intuition or awareness of communication with the essence of this of the tree and the bark and the quote-unquote spirit of the medicine, I guess you could say. Okay, so the 20 minutes is up. Feeling really good. Take a look at how dark that is. You can see how dark the liquid is. And what I'm going to do now is strain it using this strainer and put that into some Tupperware. Now you'll notice, oops. So this is the black oak boilings, and this is the white oak boilings. And what we're going to do is allow this to cool, because we cannot put this on cast while it's hot like this. This one's already cooled. This was produced earlier in the day. We're going to allow this to cool, and once it does, we can then apply this to cast. But notice the difference in the color, and then what we'll find is we can drink this white oak. What we're looking for is an astringent value. Astringent value, essentially, if you put something highly astringent in your mouth, it'll cause your lips to pucker. It has a sucking feeling. Now, you can drink this white oak, and it's like an earthy, soothing tea. It's actually quite pleasing. Drink too much of it, you get constipated. It's a medicine that's very, very good for mild cases of diarrhea. If you have a strong case of diarrhea, you'll want to drink the black oak. But it will constipate you rapidly if you're just drinking it for funsies. So as a tea, this is a very good health tonic in small amounts. Watch out behind you. The cast is just behind you. You might trip over it. But this black oak has much stronger medicinal value. So in extreme cases of diarrhea, this would be the choice to go with, generally speaking. This is also antibiotic, antiseptic. And it has healing properties that will help you speed up healing. And another wonderful thing about it is, for example, rashes, poison oak rashes, for example, this black oak is very, very helpful. And so what you do is just take a little, tissue paper or something like that and soak it in it. So I've got, I don't know if you can see it here, but I've got a little poison oak on me. Might not show up well on the camera in this lighting, but it's kind of itchy. And basically what I do is I just take this black oak and rub some of that on there. Get it moist, let it sort of absorb in, and that will take the itch away. And as far as pucker value, what we want to do is find out. I'm going to have a little bit of this white oak right now, and just notice what the effect is in my mouth when I put it in there. Almost no pucker value, almost no astringent strength. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the black oak. I just need to let it cool a little bit. You can feel, it's happening right now, there's a lot more bitterness in it. And it makes sure, actually, you look at my face, it kind of, that's from the bitterness, and that creates a strong astringent value. That's what we're looking for. That's what's going to help pull out whatever it is in cast. Now, a few years ago, my parents had a dog that had an infection in its foot. Its foot was really swollen up, it was pussy, there was an opening, and a lot of pus and infected material was coming out. And they were pretty certain that there was something in there, maybe a sticker or something had gotten under the burden on the skin. Oftentimes you have to take it into the vet and have it surgically opened up and removed, which can be quite expensive, and also can introduce other possibilities of infection. And so they were going to take the dog in, and I said, you know what, we can find on their property they had black oak, and so we went and collected some black oak and put that just using like a gauze pad. You just get the gauze pad wet and you put it in there and just kind of squeeze the material in there. If you've got a syringe that's not with a needle tip, but just like an open syringe, take the needle off. You can fill that up with the material and squirt it into the hole if there's a infected wound, and get it inside there. And what will happen is, within a couple of days, it will have pulled out whatever is in there. All the infected material will come out. It'll clean. It'll be totally clean. And what we found was that there was an actual part of a cocklebur had gotten into her skin. A small cocklebur had gotten into the skin, into the foot, and it healed up perfectly, no scar, and took the pain away as well. So it was very rapid recovery of something that may have costed, hundreds of dollars for the surgery and could have ended up causing more long-term damage. Okay, so our boy Cass here. I'm going to let him smell this. It's always good to let the dogs know, that all is well. You don't need to drink it. And so I'm just going to take this little tissue paper. No big deal. You could use a gauze pad. Doesn't matter. And I just dipped it in there. And I'm going to make sure he's comfortable so that he doesn't get all squirmy and stuff. And then, hopefully he doesn't turn. Lay down. There you go. Okay. Yeah, that's here's the spot. And so, I wonder if that's showing up on the camera. You can see a little dark spot there. That's the spot. It's swollen. And I'm just going to take this and squeeze some of the liquid onto it. And nice and wet. Okay. And so he's curious what's going on there. It doesn't hurt him. He's not in any pain or anything. And I'm just going to leave it like that. And then I'll just do that 3 or 4. I'll do that 3 or 4 times a day. Maybe every couple hours if I'm mindful of it, but at least 3 times a day. And then what will happen is he's going to get better. Now, if there's a hard scar, if there's a hard scab over it that you need to remove, you can scrape that off so that the material gets inside. And if you have a syringe or something and there's a hole there, you can actually put it in there and squirt the material into there. I'm just going to put it on the surface right now and see what happens over the next day. And then adjust as necessary. If I need to remove the scab, if nothing's happening, I'll remove the scab and start fresh that way. But it doesn't feel infected, but there may be a sticker or something underneath of it that does need to come out. So we'll see what happens and adjust as it goes. Now, I was reminded that we had another dog just a couple years ago that had a long cut that was very deep into the muscle of the inside of her thigh. She ran through some barbed wire. It was a pretty brutal cut, very deep, and we would have had to take her to the vet to have it stitched. But using the black oak in a similar fashion, we just applied that to the wound multiple times throughout the day, and within a week it was fully healed. No scar, nothing. It just the astringent value pulled the wound together, and it just healed up. And this is the way that the Native Americans, for example, a lot of Native people, they didn't know anything about stitching that we use now, so they often use very astringent plants with high healing value, and that would sort of knit the wounds together. And oftentimes it will happen without scars and prevent infections from occurring, so long as you tend to the material properly. You don't want to let it sit out and kind of get rotty or get stagnant water. You need to make sure that the material is clean. Anyway. Okay, so if we want to get more information about working with herbal plants, it's very, very important that we get some actual knowledge. And most importantly, first of all, you need to know what poisonous plants there are in your area. And so I recommend the Peterson Field Guides. They list all of the poisonous plants in North America. I don't know what people in Europe or other continents, what field guides are available, but just do some research and get some information. You definitely need to know, that's a priority, to know what toxic plants are, poisonous plants are in your area. And if you can identify those, well, at least you're not going to kill yourself in the process or cause any harm to anybody else. I recommend, if you want to get to know plants, that getting to know the edible plants is a good place to start once you've familiarized yourself with what's poisonous out there. Again, Peterson Field Guide provides a wonderful edible plant guide. This is Eastern and Central North America. They have one for Western as well. I used this when I was in Japan because Japanese plants oftentimes overlap with what was on the East Coast. For medicinal plants, they have a Western and Eastern, Central medicinal plants and herbs. Both of these are excellent field guides, and they're quite interesting. Now, they don't tell you how to produce the herbal medicines. They just talk about the plant and what the native people in the area, how they use it. I mean, like if it was good for colds or diarrhea or whatnot. And so that's on a knowledge base. You're going to want at least these books to start your exploration. I don't recommend using the internet. There is a lot of false information on the internet regarding plants and things like that, so you just make sure you're really careful about that. Double check things. These Peterson guys are pretty good, so I recommend that. And then in terms of intuition, I highly recommend you start practicing meditation, start becoming more expansive in your awareness every day. Give a little practice to it. In fact, I have a class that I offer each morning, live and on demand. It's teaching a samurai meditation that I learned while in Japan, and I highly recommend you try that. We're offering a free 10-day trial of the total embodiment meditation method. And so you can go to my website, www.richardlhaighd.com, and you'll find a tab called Samurai Meditation, and you can read about that. Join the free trial. You're going to love it. And you can find the link in the description. Hope to see you there.